everybody. You have a museum dedicated to video games, and we're talking about the history. We're talking about the people who put things together. And it was interesting because when I was reading about the mission statement, it talked about how some people back then, when they were creating it, they didn't actually know exactly how big it would become. Some people did, like Nolan Bushwell, but on the other side, maybe some people didn't really understand. And you have places like this that is preserving that history so that you could come and see it and interact with it. And we're really happy today to have Sean Kelly to talk with us. He's one of the co-founders of the museum. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. There's actually three of us. It's myself, my partner Joe Santulli, and my third partner John Hardie.
Oh, excellent. So you guys are going to be moving to a new location, and then you're going to be opening soon, right? In March?
Well, we're not moving. This is the first. We've
Oh,
never
first.
had
Okay.
never had permanent exhibit. We've been doing traveling exhibits for about 15, 20 years now. We've done E3, I think, for the past 12 years. We've done DICE, we've done GDC, we've done South by Southwest, we've done PAX. We've been doing traveling exhibits for 15, 20 years. We also ran our own show in Las Vegas called Classic Gaming Expo. We did that. We started that in 1999, and the last show was 2014. We've been at this all for a long time, and basically what we are is we're the original collectors. We were collecting video games way before anybody else thought it was cool to collect video games. I remember the first video game collecting BBS that I ran in my home computer was in 1988. So this was just after the video game market crashed, and Nintendo was popular at that time. But at that time, I had already decided that it was important to kind of preserve all of that stuff back from the Atari days. And at that time, you could go to a flea market or a garage sale and you could pick up that stuff for pennies. It was costing nothing. The amount of stuff, and my partners John and Joe did the exact same thing. We just kept rolling through back at a time when you could get that stuff. So together, between the three of us, we easily have the largest collection in the world. There's nobody that comes close. Basically, what we did is we started putting that collection on exhibit at E3, like I said, Classic Gaming Expo, and the collection has grown over the years. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we decided, what, we need a permanent place for this exhibit. We need to have some place where people can come every day of the week and check out our collection, check out the things that we've gathered over the years, rather than just once or twice at a trade show, once or twice a year at a trade show. So we put together a nonprofit, and we started looking for a home. We finally found one in Frisco.
Yeah, I actually got to see you guys at E3. I wasn't at E3 last year, but the years before that, I actually saw some of your exhibits, and it was really interesting because obviously you can see things that you recognize, like from the Atari and things like that. But there was like consoles, and there were different like accessories that came for games and things like that that I've never seen before, and it really is really interesting. And in the originally we started as classic gaming site as well, but I mean all the time you run into people that don't even realize like how far it goes. I mean there's so much that I don't know about classic gaming just because I wasn't exposed to it. How do you choose like what goes in? Is it like just really anything under the gaming label, or is there something specific that you look for?
No, that's actually a really good question because that's the difficult part. As we were deciding, the museum is about 12,000 square feet, so it can't. I mean, we could probably fill 12,000 square feet 3 or 4 times with our collection. So we had to actually go through and make some decisions: what we're going to show, what we're not going to show. And you talk about weird and obsolete stuff, but we have, or weird and unusual things. We have a ton of that stuff, but we kind of have to make a call when we're deciding what we're going to show people. Are we going to show people things that they're going to recognize, or are we going to show people things that they won't know what the heck it is? So there's a lot of things that we decided that are just too cool, whether people are going to understand what they are or realize what they are or not, that people had to see them. And there's a lot of things like, for example, we were looking at. I just came back from Texas 2 days ago, and I'm actually going back down in about 3 more days. But we were. I was looking around the museum over the weekend, and we're not open yet. We're kind of trying to put the finishing touches on it. But and looking at some of the exhibits, I walked through and I thought, we don't have a boxed Atari 2600 on display anymore. I mean, something as simple as that. We have probably 8 of them, 8 boxed ones, but there wasn't a boxed one anywhere in the museum. And I thought, is it really necessary? Do we need to have a boxed one on display? Do we take up, kind of valuable real estate with a boxed Atari 2600 when most people know what the box looks like anyway? Or would we rather have, for example, the graduate computer for the Atari 2600, which is a keyboard made by Atari that plugs into the top of the Atari system? There's only one of them in the world. Would we rather show that, or would we rather show? So we had to make these choices all throughout deciding what we were going to populate the exhibits with, and it was tough sometimes. It was really tough. Some of the things that haven't made the cut, you look back and you think, oh shit, I wish I would have shown something like that. But it also gives us a lot of stuff to work with as we keep the museum exhibits fresh. So the museum's open 6 days a week, and people I think are going to come back, every few months, hopefully. So the idea is that, so maybe we don't have a box Atari 2600 put out right now, but maybe 3 months from now we'll have every box Atari 2600, every style, so it's going to give us a lot of opportunity to keep the exhibits fresh, and we're excited about it. So, but you may come there and you may say, hey, where's the ColecoVision driving module? Why don't you have the ColecoVision steering wheel? Well, we have the ColecoVision stereo. We just didn't happen to put it out. But don't worry, it's coming. When we do a whole exhibit on ColecoVision, you'll see everything ever made. So it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really interesting because at first when I got the Atari 2600, I got the one that that everyone is used to seeing, and then what happened is something went wrong, like it broke or something like that. I ended up getting the Sears one, and a lot of people didn't know like it was exactly ran the same thing, and I
Yeah.
would take it and people would be like, wait, that's not Atari. I'm like, yeah, it is. It plays the exact same thing. I never got into the ColecoVision because I never got one, but then I ended up getting like an Atari 800, and then I remember when my cousin gave me the drive and connected it, and to me he just handed it to me. I didn't know that thing was like $500-600 for just a five and a quarter floppy disk. So it was just amazing, and that was and then you see like the other side of like other games that people never even got to even see before. So the idea, like you said, where someone may come in and they're like, oh, I know the history of this. There's so many things that you'll have those gaps in your in what you play just growing up. So everyone that goes and experiences the museum will have something else to bring to it, and like you said, it just makes it so you can go back over and over again.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. We're gonna keep changing stuff out. We got tons of stuff to change out. We got tons of stuff that isn't out. We're gonna change things up all the time, and I think that's gonna be a lot of fun for people because I think like I said, people are gonna come back every couple of months, maybe a couple times a year. But we want it so that as people come back, they're gonna see new things that they didn't see the last time, and that'll maybe make it worth the trip. We have a lot of areas in the museum that are set up like that. We have what we call it's called head-to-head hall, which is a long countertop full of game consoles, and we intend to switch those consoles up all the time. For example, the opening setup we have 10 different systems, but we have from the most common PlayStation 2 to the most bizarre video brain system. The idea is that we can change those systems up all the time. There's a lot of things in the museum that we're planning on switching out. We have an 80s arcade with 40 arcade machines in it, but we have probably another 30 or 40 machines that we can swap in and out from time to time. So the idea is that we're just going to keep things fresh as we go along.
Now, as far as the getting the items together, luckily I've been able to talk to people who've collected things, and some people talk about how when they're collecting, they're looking for like a specific set of games, and they'll look for like those hard to find games, those hard to find consoles. What is the process of gathering the items for the museum? Like even before, like when you first started out, what was that process? Was it just a matter of going through that same collecting, looking for history, or did you have people donate? Like what was that process like?
It was a lot more fun to collect years ago than it is today, because today collecting is so much about money. Back then, my partner Joe, he ran a fanzine called Digital Press, and this was pre-internet days, way before eBay. And basically, what Joe did was he put together this little newsletter, and he would mail it out once a month. He would make an issue, and he would mail it out, and there would be classified ads in the back of it, and you would use those ads to connect with other collectors. And but back then it was all about trading stuff just to get something that you didn't have. So I'll give you a Nintendo World Championship cartridge but I need a GI Joe. It didn't make any difference how much it was worth. It was all about trading, so everybody could fill in the gaps in their collection. It was a lot more fun. Today, everything is based on money, and I mean, it's the natural progression of things. It's going to happen. There's nothing that you can do about it. But back then, I used to go. I live in Chicago. My parents were living in Northern California at the time, and I used to go to the flea markets in the Bay Area and visiting them, and I would ship home boxes and boxes of stuff, and I would be buying like Atari Lab Label prototype cartridges at the flea market for $1. I mean, these things sell for $200 now. I would ship home boxes and boxes of stuff. I remember one vendor at a drive-in movie theater in San Jose had StarPass Supercharger stuff, like brand new in the box, every game ever made, the Superchargers, and they were $0.10 each. So I mean, I just bought as many as I could fit into my bag, and back then it was so much fun. And it wasn't even about the money. Like, I didn't need all of that StarPass stuff that I bought, but it was cool. And I took all that stuff and I traded with other people who didn't have it and got more stuff for mine. It was so much fun, and like I said, it's different now, but the nature of the beast, the way that collecting has turned out, a lot of the stuff that is shown up today would have never been found back then. It would have been thrown away because it wasn't worth anything. So because this stuff is worth something, people are finding so much more of it. So that's kind of the cool part. But it costs you a whole heck of a lot more money to buy it than it used to too. So,
Is there something that maybe doesn't make the cut right away, or something that may not make the cut, period? Because I'm thinking, like, for instance, one of the first computers I ever used was my uncle had the Texas Instruments, the TI 99 4A. And I remember playing games on that and also doing educational software because he wanted to make sure I get that balance. And then I remember also playing the Amiga, again, the Amiga system. My cousin was really big into that. And then it was like a battle back then between the Amiga and the Atari ST. And it's like, you pretty much could play the same games, but people are like, oh, it was like console wars, but with computers. Would something like that, like those type of early computer systems, make it into the museum as well?
Indeed, yeah. In fact, very much the same way that we have that long countertop full of consoles, we have the same exact thing on the opposite side of the museum with computers. So we have a TI 99 4A set up to play with a bunch of cartridges that you can play. We have a Commodore 64 in there. We even have an original black and white TRS 80 Model 1 computer that you can play. All of those computers, and I think there's 8 or 9 of them set up on that countertop, but all of those computers are set up with games next to them, and little instruction sheets to tell you how to load a cassette onto a Commodore 64. You have to type C load and wait for the cassette to start spinning, and all of that stuff is set up so people can come up. And it's going to be fun to watch a 12-year-old walk up to a cassette-based computer and not have any clue how to play a game. And even when he does finally get the game to load using the little cheat sheet that we have there, he's not going to know how to play it either because there's no joysticks. But it's going to be a lot of fun. But we wanted people to be able to experience what it was like at that time, and loading a game off of a cassette is a big part of that experience. I mean, back in the day, when you were to play a game on a cassette and you had to load it off the cassette, you went and made a sandwich when you were waiting for that game to load because it took forever, and it's going to be fun. I think that's a big part of the experience, to understand where things have come from, so people get to experience, putting in a 5 1/4-inch floppy or popping in a cassette, or playing a game without a controller. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we have all that stuff, so we have an Atom in that setup, with all that stuff set up, and I think people are going to really get a kick out of it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because you have people who are at the ages where they're having kids, you have people older, so you have people that spanned all of the different gaming time frame, like from the 50s all the way up to now. So you have different generations, and I can see where people will bring like their kids, and like you said, they're like, hey, check this out, look at this, and they're like, what? They only grew up with Xbox, or something like that, and now they get to see these older games and where things came from. And a lot of times people talk about even how games were harder, and like you said, even loading up games. I remember being taught how to build a little game on the Texas Instruments and program it. So it's really interesting that you can have that generation where someone's gaming today, but then they'll see this and be like, wow, or like the handhelds that they had back in the day that were so awesome.
We have a whole room set up for handhelds. It's really a lot of fun. Handhelds. If you ask somebody who's 12 or 15 years old right now what a handheld is, and they automatically think it's a Game Boy. But there were a lot more handhelds before Game Boys, and all of those handhelds played one game. So you played that game until you were bored with it, and you bought another handheld. We have a whole room set up to that. Set up just for handhelds. And on one side of that room is all your Game Boy stuff, but on the other side of that room, it's a lot of the old battery-operated Mattel footballs and the Battlestar Galacticas and the auto racing and the Coleco Donkey Kongs and the Game and Watches and all that kind of stuff. That's where handhelds started. So that handheld room is probably one of my favorite parts of the museum. It's really, really cool. Can't wait to see what people's reaction is to that.
Now it's really awesome. You mentioned Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, so I actually went to like the Field Museum very early on. My uncle was really into making sure that I got culture and stuff like that. But honestly, my favorite was going to Museum of Science and History. I remember going out there, and you would walk inside, and you see all the different science stuff, and like towards like the back center, they had the gigantic train set, and I thought that was awesome. You'd always see the kids run up and look at that train set because it was so huge, but it's something that a kid could play with in their house.
Yeah.
I know that for the museum you're going for interactivity, and I was looking like on the press release, like for instance, you have like the giant Pong on a big screen, but like you said, it's more than that. You have the Hall of Consoles. Can you just tell people about some of these other interactive events that they'll be able to take advantage of?
One of the other things that we have is we did a thing called it's called the History of Online Gaming, and in this exhibit, there are two podiums, one on each side of the exhibit, and there are two terminals set up. So you can stand at that terminal, and you can either snap a picture or you can type a message, and it sends it over to the other terminal. And there's this clear tube that you can kind of watch your message being transmitted over to that other terminal. It's simulated, of course, but the point is that on each side of those terminals, they have a little dial, so you can switch that dial to 300 baud or 1200 baud or 9600 baud or 14.4. So you can watch the different speeds as they progress, and you can change the speed of your message. So if you send a message at 300 baud and you watch that little light go across, it's going really, really slow because that's what it was like to be online at 300 baud. Or you can switch it up all the way to the other end of it, and you can select it to be fiber optic. So at that point, that LED that just is going across the screen instant or across the sky instantly. That was one of the other exhibits. We have another one that it's called I forget what. We have a lot of working titles that we've been working with. But this title is all about tools in games. So one of the ideas that we have in there is it's about tools that people use to build things in the games, like level editors, and a more modern example is Mario Maker. That's a perfect example. We'll have Mario Maker or Mario Paint on the Super Nintendo, or we have another setup for in that area where you can play a Doom WAD, and the Doom WAD that you're playing is the museum. So you're playing Doom inside of the museum. We have. And all of this stuff is set up. You can play Mario Paint, or you can play. We have another in that same area. We have this giant 85-inch LCD touchscreen that you can actually edit pixels. So along the top of it, it's got a bunch of different sprites from various games, like Mario, for example, or Streets of Rage 2, or something. And you can drag those sprites down into the editor, and then you can actually color the sprites differently, or make your own sprites based on what the Genesis can do. We have another one for sound where you can. It was kind of interesting. We had somebody develop an app for us in that sound exhibit where she took a bunch of different video game music, and then as you run the app will allow you to hear what that music sounds like playing on a different system. For example, if you took Chrono Trigger as one of the ones that we have, and you can press the Super Nintendo and you can listen to what some of the music for Chrono Trigger sounded like on Super Nintendo, but you can also hit a button and change that to what it would sound on a regular 8-bit Nintendo. Or you can even change that to hear what it would sound like on a Sega Genesis. Or take it even further, you can click the button and hear what Chrono Trigger sounds like playing on Atari 2600.
Nice.
It's really kind of cool. There's a bunch of different songs to choose from, and you can really have a lot of fun with that. There's a lot. I don't want to give away everything, but that's the main thing behind everything that we did there is interactivity. We want people to be able to play the game. So it's not like I don't know. One of the things that we tell a lot of people is we're not museum people. We don't really like museums. We don't want to be stuffy like dinosaurs and bones. Video games are meant to be played. So wherever possible, we're letting people play.
I wanted to ask about as far as you not only covering just the consoles, the games, also it's about the experience. So I was looking at like the gearbox behind the scene, because there's just those moments or those people who made such a big impact in gaming as well, that you cover that as well, because it's also about teaching people about the history and people that put it together. Can you tell us a little bit about that aspect of the museum?
Sure, that's one of the things that we've been working on for a long time, and that's one of the things that it's good that we got a head start on. Back when we started running Classic Game Expo in 1999, one of the biggest aspects of that show was that we would have a show where a bunch of vendors would get together and they would be buying and trading and selling, but we would also have a museum exhibit, which is what our museum today has evolved into. But then we would have talks, and the talks would be given by people who were in the industry. Al Alcorn talked at our shows. Nolan Bushnell talked at our show. Steve Wozniak talked at our show. David Crane, the founder of Activision. We had hundreds of people over the years talk at our show, and that was what we were doing at that time. We were cultivating those relationships. So we know a lot of those people. For example, on April 2nd, David Crane, who wrote the original Pitfall and founded Activision, he'll be there on April 2nd because he's a good friend of ours now. We've kind of maintained relationships with a lot of those people over the years, and all of those people are certainly invited. Not all of them can come; they all have lives, but we'll get those people out. Maybe we'll have a special meet and greet or a special session with Al Alcorn. Maybe we'll get Nolan Bushnell to come out for a weekend or something. We have all those types of things planned, or think those are all options. But then we also have a really good friend in Randy Pitchford, the president of Gearbox. So Randy's been probably our biggest supporter of the museum project, and he's really helped push it along. But Randy, everybody knows Randy. Randy's big in the industry. Randy knows a lot more of the modern people than us. So Randy's going to be able to help us bring in, some of the modern people and get support from the current generation people that, like I said, most of our expertise has been in cultivating relationships with the pioneers, as we call them. That's that's what we call the older guys that kind of started the industry. But Randy's our big in, so to speak, with the modern stuff, and he's more than happy to help.
Now, is there like a particular piece or pieces that you have that that either going to show up now or maybe in the future, that's your favorites?
Oh boy, yeah. Everybody always asks that. It's hard to nail something down. We have some really cool stuff. A lot of people ask us about our Sega Neptune. The Sega Neptune is the Sega Genesis with the 32X built into it. This is the only one in the world, and this is only a mock-up, but we have the only one in the world. People always get a kick out of that. We have a Sega Pluto, which is an earlier version of the Saturn. We have one of the other items that I always find interesting, and people always find interesting, is the MindLink controller. The MindLink controller is this headband that kind of strapped across your forehead, and it was made by Atari. It was supposed to work with the Atari 2600, and the theory was that this thing you could use your thoughts to control the game. Well, obviously, that isn't even possible today. So it certainly wasn't possible back in 1982, but the Atari made this controller, and they actually did get it to work, but the only thing that it does is it recognizes like how you wrinkle your forehead. So if you wrinkle your forehead a certain way, this thing picks up on it, and you can actually make objects on screen move. I only know of about 2 or 3 of those that have ever been found. We have well, I guess I should say that there's probably one other one, but we have 3 of them. So we have one of them is going to be on display. We would love to let people play something like that, but unfortunately that one is kind of going to be off limits. We have a lot of different items like that. We have a puppy pong, an arcade pong machine that was made in the shape of a doghouse by Atari, and the idea was that they wanted to get it into like children's hospitals and things like that where kids can play. It's kind of a whimsical kind of pong machine. I think there's only one other puppy pong in the world that I know of, but we have some really cool stuff. This is I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but this is a world-class collection. I mean, we've been building this collection for 30 years. There is no collection that comes close, and each one of us has our own area of expertise. And my partner Joe has been probably maintaining more of the modern stuff, but Joe has a complete NES collection, a complete Genesis collection, a complete Super Nintendo collection. I mean, he has every game ever made for practically every system, and Joe brought an amazing collection to the table. It's just unbelievable, and some of that stuff it's going to be a lot of fun to finally get to show to people because Joe's stuff. For the most part, hasn't really been involved in our traveling exhibits. So Joe's stuff, a lot of Joe's stuff is going to be on display for the first time.
Well, I really enjoyed when I got to see you guys out at E3, so I can't imagine what it's gonna be like to see you guys have a full museum that I can go and check out.
Dude,
And
you gotta be there, bro.
yeah, I mean, really, I mean, I'm in Miami, but I mean, I love to travel, so I'd love to go over to Texas and check it out.
It's
So
fun.
I mean, we definitely got to do that. Maybe get some footage and everything. But I hope people will go check it out. You can find it online at nvmusa.org. You guys can go check out all the locations, what they have going on there, and I hope people will come out and see it because I mean, if you like games at all, I mean, that just sounds like an awesome experience. You not only get to see all this great stuff, but you get to play with it and learn as well. So that's really great. And I want to thank you, Sean, for coming on and talk with us today.
Sure, no problem, bro. Thank you.